Hey guys, this is Brandon from TapRack Bang Training. Today we're going to talk about the rise and fall of the X300 Ultra. For the longest time, there's been two companies that's been competing with each other when it comes to the light space, right? Especially in the civilian market. You got SureFire and you got Streamlight. SureFire came out with the X200 in 2004 at a whopping 60 lumens. And then Streamlight, about 2 years later, came out with the TLR1 at 135 lumens. So at this point in time, between the 2004-2006 timeframe, these were groundbreaking equipment, right? Because of their compactness, their ability to be attached to a pistol or a rifle, whatever that may be. Now you're pushing out certain lumens, right? And operators during the global war on terror, law enforcement officers at the time, and civilian defenders as well were using these extensively. A few years later, EUTech decided to release their Insight M3 at about 90 lumens. And then, in 2007, SureFire released their SureFire X300 at about 170 lumens. Now, there's been a little bit of stagnancy in about 7 years there. And then SureFire released their X300U, which is the Ultra version, but this is not the Ultra you're familiar with, this is the Gen 1. When they came out first, they came out with 500 lumens back in 2014. Now, Streamlight, as a competitor, decided to one-up SureFire, and they came out with their upgraded TLR1 HL or high lumens, right? And at this time, they were still at 800 lumens because this is their Gen 1 as well. Now, this was in 2016. As you can see, it's tracking now that these two companies, mainly SureFire and Streamlight, have been competing with each other ever since the early 2000s. So what ended up happening, X300U Gen 2 came out, which is SureFire's way to one-up Streamlight, and this came out with 1,000 lumens and 11,300 candela. And this is the Generation 2 SureFire X300s that you guys are used to using a lot. A few years later though, Streamlight as well decided to come out with their TLR1 HL Gen 2s, which is now 1,000 lumens. So what is lumens? So lumens is the measurement of how bright a light is being emitted from the light source, right? Whether it be the bulb or the LED, whatever that may be, however bright the light's coming out of it, that you measure that using lumens. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna compare this Amazon flashlight. It's about 500 lumens, and then it's going to go up against this X300 Ultra. So what we're going to do now is we're going to compare this 500 lumen Amazon flashlight to the X300 Ultra at about 1,000 lumens, okay? So essentially what we're comparing with is Generation 1 X300, right, at about 500 lumens versus the Gen 2. Now, there may be slight differences, but the focus being, but we'll talk about that later. So as you can see right here, this is 500 lumens, which, by the way, if you observe 500 lumens by itself, it's quite impressive, right? Until you see what 1,000 lumen gets you, right? Now, obviously, from this point in time, switching it back and forth, you won't see that much difference until you do this. Now, these two lights have comparable spread, but you can clearly see the one on the left is slightly less bright versus the one on the right. So, you got 500 lumens in this one and 1,000 lumens. So, let's do it one more time. 1,000 lumens, 500, 1,000, 500, side by side. Just a little tidbit in this one. I have a TLR7 Alpha, which is coming in at about 500 lumens. And then I got a TLR6 right here, which comes in at about 100 lumens, okay? So we're gonna compare these two. In TRB, right? When you take a class with us, especially a low light class, we always recommend that you carry a weapon light at a bare minimum of 500 lumens, okay? Now, coincidentally, most extremely subcompact guns, right, barring the newer models, right, will only come with the TLR6. So, TLR7 500 lumens versus the TLR6. Let's take a look. We've seen 500 lumens from our Amazon flashlight, but this is what 500 lumens looks like from our TLR7A, which is very comparable, right, to our Amazon flashlight. But let's take a look what a TLR6 at 100 lumen looks like, okay? At first you're like, okay, that's not too bad, right? This is the only light you have. I only have a TLR6. That's not too bad until you encounter this. So what you're going to notice, this dealer is 6 out of 100 lumens. So if I point it at that target all the way to the right, what you're going to notice is you're unable to see the target on the left, right? Maybe it's slightly illuminated, right? I even think it's the illumination from the sky that I'm seeing from there. But if it's extremely dark, then I won't be able to see whatever he has on that hand. Even more so if I point it at the person in the center right here. One, believe it or not, I can barely see that target right now, okay? But the detail that I can see the targets on the left and the right is extremely low because it's only about 100 lumens that it's pushing out, right? It's not that bright. Now let's compare it to 500 lumens, which is the TRB minimum you should carry. I'm able to observe all three targets efficiently, right? Even if I'm on target number 1 right there all the way to the left, I'm still able to slightly see the target all the way to the right, which is target number 3, and vice versa too. 5 lumens is good, but it's only good when nobody is pointing a light at you or when you're in an extreme low light condition. Reality is most defensive situations are going to be outside, and you're either going to have street lights, cars passing by, or even worse, the adversary, the assailant, the bad guy could also be pointing a light at you. And that's the Achilles heel of 500 lumens. Once there's an adversary light, or there's a photonic barrier created by street lights, the 500 lumens is now beyond its capability in helping you out. Problem, like I said, with 500 lumens is you're unable to defeat adversary light, right? And the purpose that we have an Amazon light that is pointing at us is because it's an Amazon light. You can easily get it. So you can't see the detail. I know there's a person there. I just don't know what's happening. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Royce to turn off his light, and you're going to see what he has on his hand. Go ahead, sir. Now you can see that there's an actual gun, mind you, a yellow gun, right, in his hand. Royce still has an adversary light. We know he has a firearm down there. We just can't see it, right, because he's pointed at us right now. So what I have are 2 of the most popular lights out there, at least it used to be, a TLR1HL and an X300U, right, both at 1,000 lumens. So let's see. All right, so from my point of view, I can see slight detail now. I could actually see that Royce has a yellow gun on his right hand. So I'm going to turn this off, point at the camera real quick. Yep, and just by that little offset, by the way, I can fully see the gun now, right? So go ahead, I'm going to turn this off, and then I'm going to turn on the TLR1HL. And then I can see too. So what you're seeing here is adversary light defeat, right? So Royce has a 500 lumens, and I have 1,000 lumens, and I'm defeating his photonic barrier, and I can see through the light that he's shining at me. So see double. If I shine him double, which would be double the amount of light that's being shined on him, now we can actually see Royce's full detail, right? I can see he's wearing pants, green pants, black shirt, TRB hat, and I can see the gun now clearly versus if I was only having one. That's why at TRB we stress the importance of carrying at a bare minimum 500 lumens. Believe it or not, most in the TRB crew and most in the TRB mafia, we do carry lights that are more than 500 lumens, right? And we're gonna get into that right now, okay? Because the title of this video is the downfall of the X300U. And what do I mean by that? Okay, so in 2021, Mod Light decided to shake up the market, okay? For the longest time, the market has been complacent, and then Mod Light released a unique light in which they still have good lumens, but now they're focusing on the candela. Now, what's candela? Earlier, we talked about lumens being how bright is the light coming out from the light source, right? Candela is now a different type of measurement. Candela measures how tight or how focused a beam of light is coming out of that light source. So Mod Light decided to release the PL350, okay, which is coming in at 1,350 lumens, but here's the kicker. It's clocking in at 52,000 candela, right? Hey Brennan, is that a significant number? Well, let's take a look at the X300U, okay? The X300U at 1,000 lumens is kicking out about 11,300 candela. So it's almost about 5 times more candela that's coming out of the PL350 than it is on the X300U, okay? So this, though, shook the whole weapon light game. Because now, all of a sudden, there's a new factor that people haven't considered before, and now is being introduced. And that is how much candela can your weapon light produce. And guess what? A lot of studies came out. How much candela did the TLR1 have? How much candela did the TLR7 have? The TLR6? Both, by the way, prior to 2021, nobody cared about. So now I'm going to shine the old reliable X300 Ultra, and we'll see what the difference is. Now, so this is the X300 right here, okay? So, one thing though, before I turn on this mod light, we have the PLV2 here, right? It is in handheld light configuration. What we're demoing here though is the power of candela, right? So it will have the same effect as we intended to. So this is your X300, right? Old reliable, and boom, this is your mod light right here, okay? So what you're gonna notice, I'm gonna turn off this X300, the beam is extremely focused wherever you're pointed at, right, which is your target. Now you obviously have your splash left and right, and believe it or not, the splash is good enough that I can identify the targets too, okay? But the candela and the mod light shines when there is an adversary light pointed at you. So Royce is downrange. He has a firearm on him, so I'm gonna ask him to go point that gun at you guys right there in the camera. There we go, perfect. All right, turn off the lights real quick. All right, so we're gonna identify Royce with his gun pointed, so you can see him right there, firearm pointed at us, right? And he has an X300 Ultra attached to that light. So go ahead, shine it on us, please, sir. So at this point in time, I actually cannot perceive that gun, okay? This is 1,000 lumens versus 1,000 lumens, and they kind of cancel out each other, and I generally cannot see what he has on his hand. It could be a handheld light, or it could be a weapon light, okay? So I'm gonna turn that off. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna use the mod light to go ahead and defeat that 1,000 lumen X300 Ultra. So point at us, please. Okay. Okay, so from my point of view, believe it or not, which is hurting my eyes, I can see the gun as it's attached, right? I can see the handle and I can see the light. Right now, I have to focus really hard, right? Because the gun is attached with the light. So go ahead to remove that light real quick, sir. And then put the light like if it was a handheld light, and then just have the gun like pointed at me still, okay? So Royce has a gun pointed at us, right? But the light is now detached from the gun, you know, like it's a handheld light. So let's defeat that light one more time. Boom. Now this is where it shines, okay? So what I'm trying to prove here, right, is when I'm shining Royce with that amount of candela, what I'm doing is I'm actually canceling out that 1,000 lumens. So what's happening here is I can see the gun, I can see his legs, his extremities, and I can see the TRB logo on top, and it's actually really quite impressive, right? So from a law enforcement perspective, if somebody's shining a light at them, they're able to go ahead and defeat that light and see what this guy has. So he could have his hand down, right here, and boom, right there. With mod light changing the way the game is played right now, immediately, a few years later, SureFire decided to release the X300 Turbo, right? Which is SureFire's answer to the mod light. So SureFire decided to release 650 lumens, right? Which, oh, Brendan, it's not that bright. Got it, but it's pumping out 66,000 candela, okay? And we'll demo it again right now, what that means. All right, so now what we're gonna do is Royce is down there with a firearm again, and then he has an X300 Ultra. And on my hand right here, in this frame, cleared, right, is an X300 Turbo, okay? So let's see why the X300 Ultra is now dead. So, obviously Royce has a firearm attached into that right now, okay? And I personally cannot see it, right? I tried it with my 500 lumen light, nothing. But let's see. Close your eyes, yeah? Right there. Believe it or not, I can see the gun and how it's attached into that flashlight. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the light real quick, and I'm gonna ask Royce to go ahead and remove that handheld light, please, or the weapon light. All right, ready? You in handheld? Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead, right, close your eyes, sir, and point at Royce right there. So now you can see I'm defeating his flashlight. And actually, the X300 Ultra has no chance right now. I can see Royce clear as day, full time, and I could literally see the gun right there. So that explains the power, right, of the X300 Turbo. Now, take a look at this real quick, okay? Keep the light on real quick. So we're gonna see how effective this is if there's no adversary light. So turn off. Boom. Believe it or not, because it's so focused in the middle, the flood is actually quite impressive still. Now, mind you, earlier, Royce has an X300 Ultra at 1,000 lumens, and I had an X300 Turbo at 650, but at 66,000 candela. And guess what? The Ultra never had a chance. Now, the gun industry is always innovating, okay? So here's something. And about last year, what we noticed is that Holosun came out with a flashlight called the PID, okay? They came out with two versions. They got their high candela version and they got their standard version, okay? So let me read off the specs to you real quick. So the regular PID is at about 1,000 lumens at 23,000 candela, okay? Their high candela version is 800 lumens, but it's pumping out 42,000 candela. At first, looking at it from 1,000 feet view, you're gonna say, why are we going back to 1,000 lumens and lower candela? Here is the innovation when it comes to pistol mounted lights. Now the challenge is to fit as much lumens and candela in a compact weapon light. So if you take a look right here, right? So I have an X300 Ultra. So this is an X300 Ultra, right? At about 1,000 lumens at 11,300 candela. And this is the Holosun PID standard version. Same lumens, 1,000, but almost double the candela. Size difference right here. I don't know if you guys can see that, but the X300 Ultra is way longer, right, than this PID right here. So at that point in time, this blows this guy out of the water, right? Outperforms it, not just in terms of specs, but also in the size, okay? Now, I don't have the high candela PID here, but even with our research, the high candela PID is just slightly smaller than the Turbo, which at that point in time is still very competitive when it comes to its compactness and the performance that it actually pumps out. As we kept going, right? So Holosun changing the game. And about this year when we went out to SHOT Show, we also saw that Mod Light is now coming out with a compact version of their light in the high candela and then the high lumen platform as well. Recently, about 2 weeks ago, we saw Streamlight come out with a TLR7 in a high candela version. And now this is where the trend's gonna be. So I believe it or not, I'm excited for SHOT Show 2025 because more than likely you're gonna see a bunch of compact lights attempting, and I say attempting because I haven't seen it broken yet, attempting to compete with the X300 Turbo. Now, let's start comparison real quick, okay? So the Mod Light PL350C has about 18,000 candela, right? With a size comparable to this guy right here, okay? Which is the Holosun PID. The PID comes in at about $135 for the standard version and about $200 for the high candela version. Those prices, right, are extremely competitive versus a lot of the models that we have right here, okay? It's easily half the price of an X300 Ultra, right? Which it beats way out of the water, right, when it comes to performance. So let's take a look into that. Also, the high candela version, right, is about $200, and it's still about hundreds of dollars less than an X300 Turbo. So this is something to think about when it comes to considering the Holosun PID. All right, guys, so we're now here outside, extremely safe, okay? We're gonna go ahead and do a couple of field tests, all right? We're gonna see how does a lumen focus versus a candela focus light get affected by the environment, right? You got adversary light that we're gonna do right now, and we also have photonic barriers, right, created by a lot of these street lights right here, okay? And then we're also gonna test out the extreme photonic barrier that you're gonna encounter, right? If you're law enforcement, military, civilian, and that is the headlight of a vehicle, right? And we're gonna test it with, you know, standard beam and then high beam. And then lastly, what I want you guys to see is how far can a person be bothered by a high candela versus a lumen focused light, right? And what I mean by bothered is that if somebody's approaching you, right, and you shine your light, how far away is it going to get uncomfortable for them to continue advancing? On top of that test, we're also going to see how far away can you perceive detail, right? One thing is knowing somebody's coming. It's also another thing to know what exactly they have in their hands. So Royce is shining the X300 Ultra on me right now, and you can see my hands right and do all that stuff, but you can also perceive a lot of the environment here, okay? And then Royce is now going to shine the turbo on me, and you're going to see the detail, right, as you're coming up. One, it's extremely uncomfortable for me to do this right now, but what I am noticing though, right, from your point of view, is the amount of detail that you see, okay, because it's extremely focused to what I'm doing right here, right now. Like I said earlier, we established that the Ultra is always going to get defeated by the turbo, right? So Royce has a 500 lumen light. Let's see if you can see me when I have an Ultra shined on you. Okay, so obviously not. So what Royce is going to do now, he's going to grab the Ultra of the turbo, and then he's going to shine that on me. And let's see if you guys can perceive a detail once you shine the X300 turbo at me. Go ahead. By the way, guys, let me just explain this as good as I can. I can see that light through my eyes right now, okay, through my closed eyes. All right, so I'm gonna put up numbers right now. Call it out.
3, 2, 5.
All right, do the 500 lumens. What do I have? Can't see it, right? And then even with the light, can you see it?
No, sir.
All right, guys, so now I'm gonna advance through Royce and see when does the Ultra become uncomfortable. Actually, right here, but right here is when it becomes uncomfortable, right? To a point where it's really, really blinding. So now Royce is gonna go ahead and see what the turbo becomes uncomfortable. Oh, right here. Let me walk away, see when I can look. From this distance, I can't see anything. All right, guys, so it's very apparent on this test, okay? So the Ultra, I think I was able to get up close to Royce right before it started to become uncomfortable, and also my sight being impaired. What I mean by that is with the Ultra pointed at you, I cannot see anything, right? Like the light is now bothering my eyes to a point where I can't see anything. With the turbo, I started the exact same spot, right where I was at, which is about 15 yards away, and I could not see anything, right? So I backed up to about 30 to 40 yards, and when he lit it up, I still was not able to see the general direction where the light's coming from. I kid you not, all I saw was a big blot of light, and that's about it. Okay, so goes to show innovation, right? This, like, I kid you not, like if you shine an X300 turbo at somebody at night, adversary light or no adversary light, like you're gonna get blinded. At the same time, from when we spoke right now, right, from our research, it's not technically illegal for you to shine a light at somebody, right? So this could be a good de-escalation tool for you. So if you have a threat or a perceived threat that's coming towards you, what you can do is grab your high candela handheld light, point it at them, see what they are, and I promise you it's uncomfortable to a point where you can't see anything. All right, guys, so now what we're gonna do, right, is we're gonna use the Ultra and see if we can spot Royce through the low beam on the car. And you can, right? But the problem is that not a lot of details I can perceive, right? But when you go high candela, what you're gonna see is you're actually gonna be able to see the details of his face, right? Which is kind of the point of having a high candela light, right? Which is the turbo. So this is the X300 Ultra. Then this is the X300 Turbo right there. Now Royce's high beam. So one comes to high beam, Ultra, useless. I can't see anything through the Ultra, can't see Royce. But the moment I have my turbo, then I can see Royce, then I can see his face. All right, guys, so now we're just coming back from the street, right? One thing that I noticed is that with low beam, at that distance, you're able to see the suspect, that's the bad guy in the front seat of the car, right? One thing with the low beam though is the X300 Ultra, right? You're able to see Royce, but you can't perceive the detail of his face. But with the Ultra, on the other hand, you can actually see the details of his face. He's wearing the TRB hat versus in the Ultra where I can just kind of see his silhouette. Now, Royce turned it up to high beam, right? When it comes to the high beam, turn on the Ultra, can't see anything, right? But when I put in the turbo and I shine it at Royce, his high beam is definitely higher, right? But I'm still able to perceive his face, see the TRB logo, and actually see and identify that there's somebody in the car. One thing to note is that my car does not have front tint. So if you put tint, right, which is typical bad guy move, by the way, what's going to end up happening is that Ultra is going to get blown out of the water. You won't be able to penetrate and see what's happening inside. A quick note, though, is the perspective of the driver, which Royce reported back, right? With the Ultra, Royce was still able to see me, right? And let's say this is a DUI checkpoint for law enforcement, right? And there's an uncooperative vehicle. They're able to see the movement of your troops. They're able to see where everybody's at. If you're being followed in a follow home robbery, right? You shine the light. They're still able to see you, right? So they can see you. You can see them. With the X300 Turbo, on the other hand, according to him, no way, right? So I'm able to see you, but the Turbo blinds the driver. Now, I'm not obviously advertising shining the X300 Turbo at random people on the freeway, but what I'm saying is that if you're that military guy or law enforcement officer in a DUI checkpoint and you're trying to disable the bad guy assailant enemy's activity ability to see and perceive where you guys are at, that's one thing. But as a civilian, right, where you're trying to de-escalate and get away, shining that turbo at somebody that's following you home, right, in a follow home robbery, will give you at least a very slim chance, right, to get home and get away. Now, you still need a gun to defend yourself, but at least you get a little bit of chance. One of our clients, actually, one of our really loyal clients, shared a story with us in one of our classes. So he was working at night and somebody was about to rummage through his car, right? And if you're in the middle of California nowadays, that's actually pretty common, okay? But instead of drawing his gun, mind you, this client's a CCW holder. He wanted to de-escalate in a different way. Could he have yelled? Yeah, maybe. Could he have drawn his gun, tell him get away from his car? I don't know. I wasn't there. But one thing I can assure you that he did was that he took out his handheld light, high candela light, mind you, and shined it at that person, and he was able to de-escalate the situation. And what I mean by that is the guy left because he wasn't able to see. What our client did was give that guy one more chance and gave himself one more chance before drawing his gun. Now, with all the experience we did tonight, it's very conclusive that high candela lights are extremely important in your defensive weapon, because when you shine that high candela light, if that person has adversary light, there's photonic barriers over you, or he's just attacking you, what you're gonna get is detail, right? And you're gonna get the detail if the person is still a threat or not a threat. Because of all the experience we did tonight, high candela lights are the cause of the downfall of the X300 Ultra. Now, if you want to stay in the X300 profile, go get an X300 Turbo. But if you want to switch to a different light, we also highly suggest the mod light weapon lights and also the PID high candela.
If you think all gun laws are an infringement and you live behind the enemy lines in the People's Republic of California, then check out our Unconvicted Felons t-shirt. We came out with this t-shirt design for you where most of us are fed up with the situation here in California. So check it out. Check out our website. Awesome t-shirt coming at you. And our new line of 2 arms where it stands for 2A Rights Matter. So check out our new t-shirt and help us feed our dog.